Well, thank you again for the invitation. I'm glad you came to explain. It's a bit complex. Most people who know about this job say exterminator, which is just a small part of it. My correct title is either DDD technician or specialist. DDD is the key acronym, standing for deratization, disinsection, and disinfection. The order doesn't matter. Deratization deals with rodents like rats and mice. The second part, disinsection, is actually the most common work I do, though least mentioned. It's from the English word insects. Most of my work falls under this category. Let's take bedbugs, cockroaches, various beetles, wasps, hornets, flies, moths, and so on as examples. So insects, yes. Then the third part is disinfection, which deals with viruses, bacteria, and fungi. There's also a final aspect of the job within disinfection, pest control. Cleaning, disinfecting, and tidying up, exactly. Okay, you're capable of handling all this. That's a brief summary, though there's more. Listing everything I do would take too long. It's a very complex profession. There aren't many of us, so you have a wide range of skills, definitely. We mainly work in one part of the country. I won't specify exactly where because there aren't many of us. I'd say there might be 100 to 200 workers, total in this field nationwide. Not companies, but individual workers. It's a very niche group. Really just 100 to 200 experts in this specific area. Not many people want to do this job. At first you might think, oh, rodents, bugs, I can handle that. But when you enter an apartment and see a 3-month-old corpse, many can't stomach it. It's one thing for police to take photos or examine the scene, but we have to clean it up. Yes, exactly. The coroner comes first to collect remains, but there's often a lot left behind. It depends how long the person's been there. I'll share some stories about it. All right, we'll get to that later. Let's start chronologically. How does a young guy become a DDD expert? Well, in my case, it was because I come from a totally different industry. I have a background in gastronomy, but I didn't quite find my place in it right after school, so I took other jobs. But let's say before or during the COVID period, it really wasn't possible to continue with the jobs I was doing back then. Then a friend of mine offered me to try this new thing, and of course I had no idea what it was all about. So I thought, why not? It seemed quite intriguing. I've been doing it for a few years now, and I get it because it's fascinating. It's something not everyone does, sort of unique. It's not monotonous work like in a factory or even in a kitchen or in gastronomy. It feels a bit like, yes, you can love it, you can be passionate about it, but either way, it's brutally hard. Like it's really challenging work. It's physically demanding, especially during the peak season, which I'll explain later. When it's peak season, it's literally from morning till night, every day. There's no messing around with timing because there's so much work and we are so few that it would be impossible. But again, it's not monotonous, not at all. I really love the job, genuinely. Every case I handle is always different. I help people. I don't know if this sounds too confident, but people really need this help. Thing is, folks don't want me around. They don't even want to talk to me. The most common thing I hear when leaving a customer is, I hope we never see each other again. That's an everyday classic, but these people need me. It's like with a tow truck, right? You're not happy to deal with them because it means your car broke down or you're in trouble. On the other hand, you need that person to help you, right? It's like paramedics and doctors. As I see it, it's as popular as, say, an executioner in medieval times. People needed them, but no one wanted to chat. They weren't totally outcasts, though. When folks see me on the street with my gear, they keep their distance. I look like a ghostbuster with all my cases. It might seem that way, but it's not quite like that. In those movies, of course, in America, it seems to me in American movies, it's a very popular character. Have you ever noticed this? Always the pellet killer as he comes from some van, he has some crazy logo or even some ant on the roof. No, how they're Americans like they're a bit over the top. Yeah, yeah, that's true. But the reality, or at least I don't know how in America, here it's that those people, those customers, want it to be as little visible as possible. So discreetly, exactly. So you don't have any stickers that we're killing crap? It stops in front of the house. It looks odd at first, and for cars too, but it's not so obvious that you'd notice right away. The main difference between America and Europe is that the EU closely monitors what's used and how. It must be eco-friendly, which on one hand really complicates our work. We have to constantly develop new products that work but are also ecological to pass EU standards. I get it to an extent, but honestly, the easiest solution would be to just use gasoline. Of course, you need to be mindful of the environment. Sustainability is important, but these pests seem to develop immunity. The weaker the products, the worse it gets. I'll say this up front, if you have bed bugs, roaches, or any pests, except maybe ants, don't buy over-the-counter products. There's a well-known brand, I won't name names, but the green spray. When we say BOD, it's like a universal solution. Yeah, let's talk about Biolit. It's probably the worst option. Firstly, what you buy in stores has a tiny percentage of the active ingredient needed to kill pests. Let's say you have 4 cockroaches. You spray Biolit, kill 3, but the fourth survives. It lays eggs, and the offspring become immune. Over time, they're like Biolit-resistant superbugs. That's why it's much harder for us to eliminate them later. You kill most, but survivors become unkillable. Store-bought stuff doesn't work long term. It only affects what you see. But what we pros use lasts longer. Our sprays work for 14 days. Any bug crossing it dies. Of course, the older the spray, the less effective. It's not like you spray a corner where you know they'll be and once they treat it for 14 days, it sticks to the bug's legs and they're done. Of course, it needs repeating. The most common misconception is that it's from dirt, but it's not. These bugs suck blood. To be precise, they're bed bugs. When a bed bug lays an egg, it hatches in 5 to 20 days. The spray works for 14 days but doesn't kill eggs. That's why treatments must be more eco-friendly. Options aren't as effective. There's no spray that can destroy eggs despite what sellers claim. No single treatment can eliminate them completely. Steam cleaners with high heat can help, but it's tricky. Nests can be hidden in hard to reach places like drains or behind baseboards. That's why we repeat treatments, usually 3 times, to ensure effectiveness and prevent spread. New generations hatch about every 14 days, so multiple treatments are necessary. Fewer eggs then. Once you manage to eliminate them, well, that's how it goes. There are various types of bugs, not just crawling ones like bed bugs and roaches. I'd like to revisit bed bugs briefly because there's a lot to know. They're the most common. Every other person encounters them, even if they don't admit it. Bed bugs are those things in beds, not scabies. So if you stay in a cheap, moldy hotel and wake up itchy, you've likely been bitten by bed bugs. That's true, but it's a bit different nowadays. It's not just cheap hotels anymore. Now it can be in five-star hotels. It's enough to be in the capital or just in bigger cities. You can just hop on a bus and bring it home. It's incredibly common. No joke, I deal with it multiple times daily. It's the most frequent issue, I'll tell you. Easily three-quarters of all the jobs I get are just bed bugs, and sometimes cockroaches too. So, a five-star hotel where I pay 300 a night and I wake up bitten? It can happen, but there's a higher chance that a five-star hotel will be vigilant, trying to prevent it, you know? Yeah, it's not as common there, but it still happens. So it's not exclusively in some dump. That's an important realization. Here in our country, I don't know if it's just us, but there's this myth about bedbugs saying they come from dirt and that it's often blamed on minorities or poor people. But that's not how it works. The bedbug just goes for blood, doesn't care if it's in a $50 million house or a hostel. Clearly, it doesn't have to be any dirty den with grease. It can actually be a completely disinfected house where they have caretakers, cleaners, and everything. Exactly. Yeah, like if I don't count hostels I visit regularly, because that's just how it is. The concentration of people is always high there. In big hostels, people mix it among themselves, so it's the second most common. The place I go to for bed bugs most often are normal households. Not like dirty places, to put it politely. It's not related to hygiene at all, so it's not shameful. It just happens people accept it because, well, yes, because the widespread belief is that it was a nasty hole with cockroaches and bed bugs, right? It's seen as a myth I'd love to debunk. It really hinders the extermination process because, let's say, the big issue is in apartment blocks. With many units, bedbugs climb through pipes between flats. The problem is, I'll explain broadly, they prefer certain blood types. If brought to the second floor, they might not stop at the fifth. If people don't report having them, it's hard to eliminate. We must treat everywhere, everyone must cooperate. But it's taboo. People feel ashamed. So they hide it, trying DIY solutions like BioLit. This lets them spread everywhere. You're saying they prefer certain blood? Each bedbug or colony likes different types? I'll mention the most common, though I'm not entirely sure. It's A and B plus, that's what they like most, but it depends on gender. Let's say politely, women are less hairy than men, so it's easier to bite their skin, but they're also cleaner, more fragrant. I guess that too. Man, I can see people panicking, checking their blood type. No, but not to cause alarm. How to tell if a bedbug bit you usually, or most often there are three bites in a row, or sometimes there are tons of bites, but three in a row is a clear sign it's a bedbug. Yeah? So if you have three side by side or in a line, you know it's not from a mosquito. Well, it itches similarly, right? Or is it different? Because when a bed bug bites, it first injects into the person a kind of sedative, so at first you don't feel the bite at all. It might take up to 3 days for the bite to show. They're nasty and some people don't react at all. It can last 14 days, but for some up to 6 months. It's very individual depending on how allergic a person is to certain things and many other factors. Have you ever, for your job or self-improvement, let yourself be bitten by these creatures? No, no, I haven't. It didn't occur to me. It's quite dangerous too. I don't want to bring them home to my family, you know. Not as a crazy experiment, you know, like trying to think like them. No, I think after all these years, I know them quite well. Even without that, it's possible without it, you know. They're clever, they learn too, but I already know what works on them. It's incredible, really. It's extremely interesting, and you actually have to understand their behavior, right? Like the fact that they have colonies, prefer certain blood types, and where they most often hide. That's another interesting fact. We could talk about bed bugs for hours. I won't go into it all, but they can survive a year to 18 months without food. They'll climb behind a baseboard when people move out, hide there, and wait quietly until they sense carbon dioxide or monoxide, I'm not sure, and the 36 to 37 degrees of body heat that drives them out to feed. So they hibernate nicely behind a baseboard, waiting for up to a year and a half. A typical scenario, you buy an apartment, You let it disinfect, scrub thoroughly, but behind the molding exactly, you've got a pest, a common issue. You caused a bit of panic again, I think, man. Well, that's why people should call me, right? To solve it for them. When buying a new place, maybe as part of the process, they call you for prevention. They can, yes. Definitely, it's not a problem. For most of these pests, except maybe bed bugs, you can even get traps. Regarding monitoring for pests, it's tricky. For bed bugs, typical methods don't work as they only seek blood. There's talk of a heat trap, but I lack info to endorse it. Now, for roaches, we use sticky traps. These are adhesive boards with various types available. We use a scented powder containing pheromones and attractants. Roaches are drawn to it, crawl onto the sticky surface, and get trapped. It won't escape now. We know it's there, so we'll address it. That's enough. The sample confirms our suspicion. You proceed. This is common in restaurants and social facilities. It should be mandatory, but it depends on the local health inspector. It varies within monitoring. If something's detected, they call you. That's how it should work. Toxic products shouldn't be used anymore. Before any infestation is confirmed, spraying in an operational restaurant isn't legal. So these traps are used first. Only after confirming an infestation do we take further steps. One thing that comes to mind as you speak, you clearly know a lot about this. You've been doing it for a while, but with so few experts and constantly changing regulations, how did you learn all this? So you have to start with this. Of course, one learns most by practice, but there are three main parts. Let me explain it differently. There's a hygiene course that every technician who wants to do this job must take. The first part is basic and general, teaching how to handle preparations. Then there's the second part, which is about toxins. It's done gradually afterwards. I'm not sure exactly what it covers, but it's like the next level. The third part is advanced. At this level, you can manage a whole company working with stronger poisons. It's a tougher caliber, to put it simply. That's the foundation you must learn and renew every 5 years. You'll learn this in the company you join, but yes, you repeat it, train, and then you're set. I don't know, do you attend any training about new methods? We've found they're immune to the current one, so there's a new product you need to learn to use. Usually, the manufacturer handles this. Each company uses what works best for them, what they have good experience with. Typically, hygiene departments or manufacturers themselves test these products on pests. If it works, they might improve it or release a new one, pulling the old one from the market. So, we don't really need to worry about this, right? Yes, you work directly with what's proven effective and tested. Exactly. There's EU legislation that dictates what can and can't be used. For a company to introduce a product in a country, they must conduct numerous tests. This can cost tens of millions in each country separately. So it's not like when a company here gets approval for one product, it can be used in Slovakia, but they have to recertify it. The product can work for 2 years in certified areas, then the EU might say, not anymore, it's not eco-friendly. They invest millions, then it's banned. It's tough for you to keep improving, but it's really awful for the manufacturers, right? Percentage-wise, the mixing is always the same, or you can read it on the label. You learn quickly, but it's tough for manufacturers. Still, products are getting less complex, so you need more creativity or frequent checks. I wouldn't say it's a disaster, at least for us. Not sure about other companies. But what we use is still quite effective. In the past, there were products that were even more potent. Fewer treatments were needed. Many older folks will remember DDT, which is now banned. It was carcinogenic, used mainly in the previous regime. Such a strong product, if you sprayed it, no bug would enter for half a year. But rightly so. It was found to harm humans too. So, yeah. I understand the ban, but it's a bit of a hassle. Some products aren't bad enough to be banned. Maybe it's better for you. More work and visits. You're right, it's good for us. But we don't want bad reviews from customers saying we didn't eliminate the pests. Even with few competitors, there's still choice. If you provide a bad experience, customers will go elsewhere. We don't like that approach. We aim to offer affordable prices and arrive as soon as possible. Some companies give dates weeks away, but why wait? I get there's lots of work, but everything's possible if you try. I don't want to hear 3 weeks. What's the point in that? If you have a hotel with bed bugs or a restaurant with cockroaches in the kitchen, that's a serious problem. A single bed bug can lay 2 to 3 eggs daily, hatching every 5 days. After just 3 weeks, that's 63 new eggs. It takes time to eliminate an infestation. It's not solved after one treatment. If a hygiene inspection finds a restaurant is infested, they'll call you in to handle it. Even then, the kitchen may be closed for a month or more to fully resolve the issue. Well, it varies. We do as much as we can. We work with restaurants proactively, doing preventive checks and inspections. This way, if there's an issue, it's dealt with immediately. It doesn't reach the health department stage. Conscientious restaurateurs. But of course, it happens that the health department shuts down a restaurant or it has to be closed permanently. It definitely happens, but it's not too common. There's even a website where you can find restaurants that are contaminated or don't meet hygiene standards at all. I think I've seen something like that directly from the health department, where they publicly shame establishments or something similar. I'll try to find it later. I saw photos of kitchens where, well, that's probably a separate topic to analyze. Places you wouldn't want to eat at anymore. You've probably seen a lot of that too in those kitchens, right? I'll give you a perfect example without naming the place, since they've fixed the issues now. But there was one restaurant I visited the day before they called us about having cockroaches. So, yeah, you really lucked out eating there. It was absolutely fantastic. We were there on a date, so it was great. The next day I went back, climbed into the kitchen, opened the ventilation in various spots. I've never seen so many cockroaches, hundreds flying around. Of course, it spread to nearby areas, so it was a long-term job. Did you have a direct experience? You know, ignorance might have spared you. Now, due to your job, you know you ate from such a kitchen. Even if nothing's wrong, seeing the cleanliness or lack thereof, I know where to eat or avoid. Sometimes I see kitchens with food on the floor, oil everywhere, mess and garbage. It's quite common. Have you been somewhere that really shocked you? Dude, it's like a fancy restaurant, you know? Well, maybe not quite that fancy, but it's a well-known fast food chain. Not the whole chain, but specifically the branch I went to. Actually, I might have been to two of them. They convinced me that the food quality might be a bit worse there, but it's subjective, you know. I haven't seen all their restaurants, just the two I visited, and they were exactly like what I described a moment ago. By the way, is there a fast food chain you've been to? Speaking of prevention, you'd say it's always top notch. You could easily name places if it's positive. I wasn't there specifically for prevention or long-term checks, but I can say that McDonald's has never been a problem. It's always clean. They really care about that. I'm happy about that. I quite like going there. I don't have any complaints, of course. Sure, it might happen that a rat or field mouse runs in at some highway McDonald's, but that's they usually have it handled to prevent entry or eliminate pests quickly. They can manage that. Yes, prevention is key. It's frustrating when I step away from restaurants and see that authorities aren't educating people about pest control, not just rats, but overall deratization and disinfection. People do such foolish things, it's terrible. Briefly, back to bed bugs. If you find them at home, in bed, or anywhere, don't toss infested items in hallways or outside. Often neighbors see nice furniture and take it home, unaware of hidden nests. Days later, they call about bed bugs. So be careful. It's really important. Call a company because it's a legal obligation. Yes, okay, if someone isn't a certified worker in this area or simply doesn't know what they're doing, then under the Public Health Protection Law, they're obligated to call a company that will handle the pest elimination. Nobody knows and nobody monitors it, but it's still a requirement, and I think you find them at home like that bug, so you're obligated to just handle it professionally. Exactly so, because it tends to spread, whatever it is. Because someone has an issue at home and doesn't report it, the neighbors shouldn't have to suffer because it will gradually spread to the neighbors too, which is actually the worst part about living in those apartments. Well, not just the apartments. For instance, I got a mall. We have what's like a food chimney in the kitchen, and there's ventilation there that even in the summer there's terrible cold, which is great for the food when you store it there. But actually, there are some interconnected vents where a moth nested in some rice or something. It was really hard to detect and eliminate. Of course, there are over-the-counter solutions, but we have special methods to treat the vents. It gets more complex, though. That's why it's crucial to address it immediately, not wait a month. I didn't deal with moths myself. I just bought traps. They caught them and I tossed them out. Of course, I knew where their nest was, and over time I managed to catch them. Well, as long as there aren't too many, especially with moths, it's manageable. Yes, indeed. But I generally believe it's always best to address it immediately. In some places, it was like a botanical garden at my place. I felt helpless at times, but I eventually figured it out. In the end, it almost always works out. Even though my service isn't cheap for customers, it ultimately turns out to be much cheaper than trying to handle it themselves. It's more efficient, quicker, and safer. People will have peace of mind sooner. Sometimes folks get hold of products they shouldn't have access to. Accidents can happen, and occasionally do. No one dies, of course, but poisoning can occur if an area is heavily infested. For cockroaches and bed bugs, we use smoke bombs to flush them out of hiding. They run to the spray and they're gone. But the smoke bomb is so strong that you can't be in the apartment for 48 hours to avoid breathing it in. We were in an older apartment building. I'll show you a photo later. There were about 20, 30 apartments, and all of them had some cockroach issues. Specifically, the German cockroach, which is the most common here. It's interesting actually. In our country, we have 5 types of cockroaches and 6 types of roaches, or vice versa. I'm not sure now. But the German cockroach is by far the most widespread. 99% of the time when someone calls about roaches, it's these. So we went through the building, treating each apartment until we reached the top floor. And there was this, how should I say, family of addicts, you know, not entirely, but I'd say poor hygiene played a big role. Now, with the roaches, it's a bit different. Man, I've never seen anything like it. We walked in, and every step, at least 100 roaches, crawling on kids, on food, and she's just, oh, it's not good at all. But apparently, the cockroach carries salmonella. I'm not sure about typhus. I don't want to gossip, but I think it does. And many more such diseases, and surely that must be illegal, right? You can't possibly raise children in that environment. That's just it, obviously. Before it begins to expand, and often it takes such a long time, you would have needed to report it somewhere, or perhaps the property manager or the homeowners association already knew about it and took care of it. So we set off the smoke bomb there because just spraying wouldn't have been enough, and those people had to agree not to enter for 48 hours. So yeah, I came into work the next morning, and 48 hours hadn't even passed, not even 24 by my count. And I was told they entered the apartment, the door opened, smoke poured out, and the smoke spread to the other two apartments, so of course ambulances and firefighters were necessary. A few people got poisoned from it, eh? No one died, but it burns you, like your mucous membranes. Once my mask burst. You need protection, especially for breathing. It happened when I was sealing the door at the end. You have to close windows, seal doors to keep it in. As I was finishing, it cracked. Smoke got in my nose. I quickly sealed it, couldn't breathe for a bit, but then worked for 20 more minutes. I couldn't breathe. It's really aggressive, insane. Just 5 minutes could be fatal. It corrodes the lungs. It's not instant death, but if you stay in it for a few minutes, when the mask fails, you can still escape, but it's far from pleasant. It's exactly like in those movies, you know, where they set up a tent and fill it with gas. They come out wearing masks. It's similar to what's used in America, of course, so they shouldn't do it. I'd say it's not that critical environmentally. Even tents are used, or simply, we don't do it. We don't do it at all. You must be certain, especially with smoke bombs, because take the apartment building example I mentioned. If they didn't sign the form, it's on me. I set it off, clearly. There are holes in pipes everywhere, so it can escape to another apartment. The smoke could reach a sleeping neighbor who inhales it and dies. The customer isn't liable if they signed. I am, for agreeing to use the smoke bomb. So you must seal all risers, all ventilation. If I'm unsure, even a small hole in a broken window is enough for me to refuse setting it off because, man, that's a heavy responsibility. It's a big deal, you know? I usually get nervous when I'm not totally sure. How often do you do it? You gotta use that nasty stuff, right? It's not super frequent, depends on the season. Like now in fall and spring, it happens more often because those pests move into apartments for warmth. Cockroaches, they're mainly after water, so they love the warm, damp bathroom more than hanging out in sewer pipes. Yeah, I'd like my bathroom too if I were them. It's always humid in there. So these bugs only go where there's water, or what? Mainly in wet areas, so the most common spots are the kitchen, bathroom, toilet, and risers. I see, so I understand now. Bedbugs are often found in bedding because people sleep there at night. They're usually within half a meter of the bed or couch. Sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to add that. Cockroaches are mainly found where there's water, like bathrooms. Scabies can be anywhere. It's become quite common, though not something I deal with daily. What's the difference? Well, there are all sorts of leather eaters, silverfish, the kind that don't bite. Leather eaters don't bite, they don't bite, particularly the silverfish. Yeah, silverfish, that's how it is. You can see it. I once had that in the bathroom. It's like a tiny support that just helps remove the moisture. Yeah, you can get rid of it. I wiped it down with some kind of brutal sanitary product or something and never had the issue again, but I know they were in the cracks, like when I was renting an older apartment earlier. And then there's still such a whetstone, a beetle kind of, it's called a carpet beetle. It crawls out of windows, but it's actually a harmless bug. It mainly eats dead skin and dust. Only at certain stages can it bite human skin. Sounds scary, but it's mostly harmless. It's like a tiny vacuum, running around eating dust. It's a neat little bug, except when it's young and can eat living skin. That's just a specific stage, though. Yeah, exactly. So when it's young, it's more aggressive, so I think it's about pushing into something you're unsure of. Don't be ashamed if you don't know something. The eager ones are most common, which is fine. There's a lot to learn from them. But let's move on to other topics. Shall we discuss seekers? All right, let's talk about seekers. They're common, but I'd split this into two parts. In cities, it's rats, not creasy. Creasy don't exist here, except on me. There are two places with actual rats. Rats are more aggressive and have driven out creasy. People often say they have Creasy at home. No, you don't. Unless you live on me, you have rats. Rats are incredibly smart. For instance, when they want to enter a house, they live in groups, you know. They'll send among young adults, the least important ones are sent first. When they return unharmed or find something good, more are sent. Gradually, even the bosses arrive, following a hierarchy. They send expendable guinea pigs first. This behavior is called neophobia, fear of new things. They test on less valuable members, making the colony hard to eliminate. For example, we might use treatments or say pads or logs mixed with nuts, grains, and a substance called bromadiolone, which functions like warfarin. It thins the blood, so when a rat eats it, it won't know it can be harmful. Then it heads back to where it lives, and about 4 to 5 days later it bleeds internally without feeling pain. It's not like if you gave it plain poison where it would just die immediately. It wouldn't return, and others would think, let's not go there. Let's say maybe there are mechanical traps. Imagine there are two rats come. One gets into a trap, it snaps shut and breaks its neck, and the other doesn't see it yet still avoids the area. A mouse, no, mice are dumb. There could be 10 right next to each other and they would still go in. But a rat, rats are clever. So you have to be cunning in handling them. And the last thing I would definitely not recommend is when cornered, a rat attacks. They're trained to bite the carotid artery, jumping up. Yes, it's happened. Has a rat killed someone? No, but months ago. I wish I could show you. I forgot to ask the lady for the video she filmed. They had a rat in their kitchen. If she's watching, hello. This surely hasn't happened to anyone else. So yeah. Hey, the rat was behind the ball under the counter and I just couldn't find it properly, I said. So I'll just leave the traps there. It'll get caught and I'll come for it. Yeah, suddenly I see its head peeking out from behind the dishwasher. So I took a broom and whacked it. This guy was helping me out, suggesting that we might knock it out or something. They set up a barrier between the kitchen and the living room so it wouldn't run off elsewhere. Yeah, but a rat can't jump, so I'm poking around and can't find it anywhere. I look to the left and the guy says, over here, over here. He started whistling. I had a shovel in my hand and the rat wanted to jump at the boy, yeah? As the boy was screaming, it obviously, well, as it started jumping, I took the shovel. They had the window open to the garden, so I batted it into the garden. It just squealed and ran off. I'm 100% sure that this has never happened to anyone. Definitely not. We're greeting the whole family. You've definitely met each other. Man, you're quite the canoeist, but one would expect something more sophisticated, you know, and you're at it with a shovel, blasting it out the window, and that's your job. You can use an air rifle, but I'm no Anton Spelek sharpshooter. Hitting a rat is tough, they're fast. It's simpler. I won't shoot indoors, things break. I've used a shovel before. Once in an office, they caught one under a cabinet. It's grim, but it's my job. They trapped it, it was aggressive, so I came with a shovel and whacked it. Bye-bye, you know, it's quicker than setting traps. But I heard kids were there. Do you often have an audience? Not often, but people are curious. I'd watch too. Most common are hornets. Hornets, to be precise. Here, people will write that they must not be destroyed. Yes, hornets must not be destroyed in the open nature as soon as they nest on a house or some such device which is used by man. Then they are disposed of. Yes, and that bothers people a lot. I do this often from the street. Once we even dealt with wasps, perhaps even on Wenceslas Square or such in Prague, eh? So there was a lot of audience, often like people from the street when it's somewhere on a prefabricated house or somewhere like this by the house. So they watch. Well, I used to mind, I was nervous, but now as it is routine, I rather like that. Yes, that I have attention, taser, little idea. I like that people appreciate that. Yes, that not happens to me, like let's say with other professions. I would say that with this, salesmen must have a problem, that those people are unpleasant, bad, nasty. This doesn't happen to me. Those people very well know that they don't understand it. Yes, now and then comes some smarty. But that's nothing that would get me into a conflict. You can really see that those people respect it and appreciate when an expert comes to really help them. It's crucial to explain everything properly and do the job honestly, then there's no problem. So, like with most cases, or how they interacted with people, they value that. So it's also nice, you know? Okay, let's say this was about homes. But you surely work in big warehouses and companies too, right? I can imagine grain or food storage facilities. That must be where it's most common as well. But I'm actually in charge of a whole city. I won't say which, but it's in the Czech Republic. Many cities do this, and they all should. Definitely where rats appear. In my city, when there's an outbreak on a street or near a building, we set up stations. These are locked boxes with bait, safe from dogs, kids, etc. Where it crawls, it eats, gets into the sewer, and that's it, yeah. And it kills that one, yes, yes. Plus they do this all over the city. They put traps in the sewers. You can't just throw them in. That's illegal. There are crazy fines, but on a wire, it's tied behind the sewer or steps so it doesn't touch the bottom of the canal, but the rat can still reach it. They always pull out the wire or string, check it, refill if needed, and this prevents the rats from spreading further and further. So this keeps the population in the sewer at a reasonable level exactly. Sometimes one pops up somewhere, but that's everywhere, I'm saying. How many must have been in the center? Like when hygiene was completely awful and no such profession existed. Even now, it's no joke. Take Prague, the capital, it has the most, and just in the sewers, they used to say 5. Now they say up to 6 million rats just in the sewers. That's like what's outside the sewers can't even be estimated, not even by computer. That's at least 6 rats per Prague resident. Minimum more like 10, yeah, more like 10. I'd say even more, but well, because it's not really being dealt with everywhere, you know. There are districts that don't address it. Why? It costs a lot of money. It's all about money. 100% it's about money. But when there's a problem or people complain, then it comes out. I don't really see into those higher circles how it is there, but yeah, of course there are districts that deal with it, though not entirely successfully, because not everywhere is successful, of course, or it takes longer because there's just so much that would need to be done in Prague to eradicate it, but so far. It's showing the opposite. We're fighting as we can, but so far we're short on time. It means that one district is exemplary. You do prevention there and take care of it. And then the neighboring one might let it all come to you. It's most common with the sewers when something's being reconstructed with water, sewers, anything. When you dig into the ground, as soon as you dig, it happened to me, in one part of Prague, right in one street. When they renovated sewers in about 10 nearby streets, rats scattered everywhere. People kept calling about rats in houses and shops. It's a long process, happens yearly. We have seasons like spring when sewer work starts. Main seasons April, May to October, November, with wasps being a major daily issue. Each season brings challenges. Winter's calmest. December and January have the usual year-round pests. Bedbugs, roaches, rats. Spring, everything emerges. Wasps and hornets slowly appear. Rats run wild. People bring bedbugs from hotels. Roaches leave sewers as weather warms. Summer's intense. We go all out, you know. It's like, do you work weekends or can we? We can work weekends, but it's voluntary. Sure, there's labor laws, but the company runs shifts on a voluntary basis. You've been here a few times, so. Next scale, you know what I mean? There's these flying pests like hornets and wasps, yes. Do you deal with sprays for mosquitoes and such? Not so much for mosquitoes, but we do. It's not as common. But moths, flies, and fruit flies, those tiny ones, yeah. So these small household pests and then like hornet nests in attics and such. Yeah, those too. How do you get rid of them? That's my favorite part. The most enjoyable part of dealing with hornets is seeing immediate results. There are two options. A classic nest, visible as a bump. I can show a photo. You spray it, they fall, and you remove the nest. Goodbye. Killing just the queen would work too. They'd all die eventually. That's true for both hornets and wasps, but it's not always possible. The queen's usually hidden deep in the nest. I've only seen her twice. Over the years, I've seen hornet queens twice. They're huge depending on age. In spring, when they wake up, they're smaller. The life cycle of a hornet or wasp nest is interesting. Let's start with the end, which is actually the beginning. Each winter, the whole population dies, including the old queen, but before dying, she lays new queens. These either fly out into the world or find a warm place to hibernate. They double in size until disaster strikes. If left unchecked, they die off at season's end. The queen steals from other queens, dies, and the cycle repeats yearly. In spring, she's fresh and lays worker eggs. As her end nears, she lays more. She also lays future queens. If they survive the whole season, which I don't prefer, the nests become massive. I've seen nests up to 1.5 meters long. That's huge. If it doesn't fit the screen, I surely have photos. You might find such nests in September after they've worked all summer long. In November it's worse. Those beaver colonies are no joke. When you come in May and see a small mound, you just spray and say goodbye. But it can take hours to clear. Do you use an excavator or something? No, we spray it the same way. You spray, move on, they fall off, and we collect them. You wear protective gear, right? Yeah, I do. Sometimes you take risks, though. It varies. If there's just a small nest, sure. In summer heat, wasps can't do much. I've never been stung, not once. Really? Not even one sting? No way. Must be some spray. Like pepper spray? Yeah, it sprays 5 m far. We use two types. One shoots a stream for distance. It's a pain. It shoots through the nest and gets inside. The other's a spray, I prefer that one. The jet-like one can be bought freely. You can piss them off with it too, but you won't hit all. Of course it angers them. That's why I prefer the other one that sprays and they fall. It's like rain, really. It's instant. Hornets can still fly a bit further, but they're not aggressive, especially when hit. It'll buzz, fly to a tree, sit there and die. It flies away politely. Never seen an aggressive hornet, but I've read that unless it's some mutated Chinese one or something, we've seen it once this year. Really? A colleague did, not me. He's dealt with it once. He says it's becoming a real problem. First, it eats bees. Second, it makes... Often driving close to bees and in treetops, I can work up to 8 m high, so special equipment is needed beyond that. Yeah, it's like it can go even higher and you need... Yeah, exactly. So safety rules don't allow working higher. I'm no climber, so you could get a platform, but of course that's much more expensive. Often not worth it. Not everyone wants it, but mainly. One thing, the Asian or Mandarin hornet doesn't matter, can chase a person for a kilometer or two. Unlike our bees that give up and fly away, this one really keeps going until it stings you. I wouldn't dare go near them in a t-shirt and shorts. No way, you'd be asking for trouble. I hope something happens and they die out before spreading here. I'll tell you, with these mild winters here, even last December I was dealing with huge wasp nests. It's not normal, they should have been long dead. It's possible we won't see this in winter anymore. They might adapt over time, survive, and become year-round. They have the opportunity. Definitely. How big of a problem is this for you? Do you see it as a significant change in the few years you've been doing this? Or maybe, from what older colleagues tell you, did more die off in winter when there were harsh frosts? Now, it's just that there are more because of it. I'll just add a funny side note. I'm now one of the most experienced technicians, professionally speaking. Though I'm not that old personally, you know? But yeah, there's definitely a difference. Not just with hornets and wasps, but generally speaking. Let me go back to the previous topic for a sec. Often, entire apartment blocks are treated for roaches. It used to be done once a month a few years back, now thrice weekly. Whole apartment block, yeah, it's due to weather, not just that, but it definitely plays a role. But let's get back to the wasps. The second option is when you can't see the nest and they chew through the wall or insulation. That's trickier. We handle it gently to avoid cutting. Sure, you could vacuum, but with a small hole like this, vacuuming's tough. We'd have to cut the wall or insulation. Instead, we use a sprayer. We fill it with powder, pressurize it with a compressor, and force the powder into the nest under pressure. It reaches the queen, she dies, and so do the others inside. The rest die by evening because they've got nowhere to return to. They can't survive without the nest. That's how we deal with hidden wasp nests, effectively, without causing unnecessary damage to the structure queen. That's really cool, but you have a regular powder cannon, a pressure one that gets right in there. So hornets or just wasps do this, both hornets and wasps. They chew through insulation, like in houses, and make their little paths in there. It's quite a big property damage, right? It is. That's why I'd like to say it'd be good, or I won't order anyone, of course, but for saving money will be better if you see wasps or hornets on your house, call right away. Don't wait a month or two. In a week or two, a wasp can make a space as big as a soccer ball. It doubles weekly. So if you leave it for a month or two, you'll have a hole in the wall about 2 meters wide. Fixing the facade, I don't know. 2 square meters will cost way more than calling us. Every intervention, like when someone buys a cheap bug spray for $1 and starts spraying, all it does is annoy them. That's why I don't trust these solutions or sprays, because they just anger the insects and they still come after you. Plus, someone might be allergic without knowing. Then they get stung and it's game over. Nothing more effective exists to keep them away, you know? It's not like you can just call them off. You understand? Yeah, there are products though, especially for wasps, even if you can buy them over the counter, but only in cases where you can see the nest, like in a wall or something. Sure, you can't reach those. You need special tools. A person can't do it alone, they just hurt themselves. There are some that look like fire extinguishers. They're on a pole. You can buy them at hardware stores. Those work, I'd say they work well. We don't use them, but I know you can work with them. Well, for bigger areas, it depends on the weather when it's. So the wasps are flying outside since morning, so you spray what's inside. But 90% of all those wasps are somewhere outside and start to retreat because they sense danger. So you end up fighting with what's flying around. It's best when it rains, then they're all inside. That's ideal. Or in the evening when they're all in. But waiting for all nests until 10 p.m. in summer, before that, sometimes I need to sleep a bit. You can do some really massive interventions with these. I've had a few, yeah. The first was wasps a month after I started. My colleague was still training me. They chewed their way in. If it's not stone, they always do. It's just a matter of time. We carved the wall from inside, as it was enough to peel off the plaster. There was a nest, normal combs behind the plaster, that long. Well, it was also around September. They already saw it wasn't just a small one. It doesn't do anything, just a noise. When we cut out that nest, it was easily 2.5 m long. Taking the wall behind you, it's 3/4 of that wall for sure, maybe even bigger. A meter high, that's how big the nest was, and that's what happens when people leave, go on summer vacation and return. It's worst with abandoned cottages over summer. There must be several colonies, hopefully not more than that. It doesn't have to be. The colony doubles weekly. With hornets, it's simple. Being big, they build larger spaces, but if wasps can do it, it must be several months old. Another thing that came to mind when making poisons for rats or other rodents, I know you said you set special traps to prevent dogs or children from accessing them. But what if a dog does eat it and you need to know the most effective first aid? You can't exactly call an ambulance, right? Obviously, rush the dog to the vet immediately. These products start working, but they take days to have a lethal effect. They're active the whole time, but it's only after a few days that they can be fatal. Like, if a big dog ate one bait, it wouldn't die. It might vomit or have diarrhea, but it's also dose dependent. So if a small dog or something similar ate it, that could unfortunately be harmful. Get the animal to a vet right away. They'll give vitamin K1, which counteracts the poison, bromadione, and generally all 4 poisons used. These poisons all work by thinning the blood, which delays death. So when you give something that actually thickens the blood, you see what I mean? Yes, yes, exactly. What's K? Vitamin K1 should be used. It's always on the label. It's needed, it's common. You can get vitamin K1 at pharmacies or hospitals. For animals, vets will inject it. For humans, it's best to go straight to the hospital instead of searching for a pharmacy. Just go to the hospital, tell them what you or your child ate, and they'll handle it. They'll inject or administer the vitamin somehow. The needed vitamin can be found at pharmacies too. I think I even bought a pack just in case. Can you think of any important info on how to behave or not behave with bed bugs, roaches, or hornets? Any key principles or crucial information I should know? Yeah, so about those wasps and scary ones. If you're not sure you can handle it or have allergies, I definitely wouldn't risk it. It's better to pay for a professional than end up in the hospital with swelling or something. It's definitely no laughing matter, and I think that covers everything about hornets. Otherwise, I might mention something interesting about bedbugs. There are two main differences between a town and a village or bigger cities: more people and fewer people. It often happens that when I visit bedbugs somewhere in a village or on the outskirts where there aren't as many people, it's not expected or thought possible that the bedbugs would be there. But watch out. It's not the bedbugs that people would carry on themselves. Whenever I get to a place with fewer people, I always ask if they have a nest of swallows, martins, or pigeons in the barn. There's a bedbug that looks almost identical to the common one we discussed, but it's slightly smaller. It's called the bird bug or swallow bug. It behaves the same way. When swallows or martins nest on houses, these bugs get inside. The process is similar to regular bed bugs. When these bugs can't spread through humans, they migrate via animals. That's the issue. We can't eliminate swallows. They're cute birds people like. Having a nest in your garage might seem nice, but it's almost always a problem. I'd say in most cases, if not all, it's an issue. It just brings bedbugs to those people. Well, can I do something about it without destroying the swallow's nest? How can I delouse them or spray until they move out, then remove the nest? Well, spray and eliminate. There's also treatment against, you know, we didn't even discuss birds. Actually, you're dealing with pigeons and such, right? Sure, it's more about disinfection, like cleaning up after pigeons on balconies and such. That's done too, but it's combined with preventive measures against pigeons, balcony nets, railing spikes. In big cities, definitely. We install those. Plus, of course, it needs cleaning before that. You can't even access some balconies. People store things there, covered in bird droppings. So that must be disposed of. But it happened to me that I came like this to pigeon hunting. Well, I couldn't do that. It was really maybe one of the first weeks I worked. You get used to it over time, but it was when I was getting rid of the mess on the balcony. A pigeon made a nest out of a flower pot somewhere in the corner of the balcony. And there were pigeon chicks. Well, the lady wanted them gotten rid of, right? And I wasn't used to this yet. Luckily, I had a box, so I did something that didn't fix the problem 100%, but it felt better for me. I took them, or not in my hand, but I killed them and threw them into the box. I closed the box, put it in the car, and drove to a nearby forest. There I took them out and left the box. At least I didn't see it, and I was shaking for half a day. Of course, you see it every day as time goes on. Yeah, so today he would swing a shovel? No, probably not. There's a regulation or law that animals must not suffer, whether it's a pigeon, rat, whatever. Bedbugs probably don't suffer, or I hope no one cares, right? But they mustn't suffer. So, for example, it's forbidden to drown kittens. It's in the same law. The kitten just can't suffer. There are so many ways to dispose of an animal humanely, so why? Why would someone drown kittens? It's really a crazy, outdated practice, but it happened and probably still happens somewhere. And of course, there are also ways to eliminate pigeons, but I'd rather not go into detail. It's an ugly thing. Okay, so let's leave birds alone. But you already hinted at something else. That after dealing with the pigeons, you clean up and disinfect the mess they leave behind, right? If you're not sure you can handle it or have allergies, I definitely wouldn't risk it. It's better to pay for a professional than end up in the hospital with swelling or something. It's definitely no laughing matter, and I think that covers everything about hornets. Otherwise, I might mention something interesting about bedbugs. There are two main differences between a town and a village or bigger cities: more people and fewer people. It often happens that when I visit bedbugs somewhere in a village or on the outskirts where there aren't as many people, it's not expected or thought possible that the bedbugs would be there. But watch out. It's not the bedbugs that people would carry on themselves. Whenever I get to a place with fewer people, I always ask if they have a nest of swallows, martins, or pigeons in the barn. There's a bedbug that looks almost identical to the common one we discussed, but it's slightly smaller. It's called the bird bug or swallow bug. It behaves the same way. When swallows or martins nest on houses, these bugs get inside. The process is similar to regular bedbugs. When these bugs can't spread through humans, they migrate via animals. That's the issue. We can't eliminate swallows. They're cute birds people like. Having a nest in your garage might seem nice, but it's almost always a problem. I'd say in most cases, if not all, it's an issue. It just brings bedbugs to those people. Well, can I do something about it without destroying the swallow's nest? How can I delouse them or spray until they move out, then remove the nest? Well, spray and eliminate. There's also treatment against, you know, we didn't even discuss birds. Actually, you're dealing with pigeons and such, right? Sure, it's more about disinfection, like cleaning up after pigeons on balconies and such. That's done too, but it's combined with preventive measures against pigeons, balcony nets, railing spikes. In big cities, definitely. We install those. Plus, of course, it needs cleaning before that. You can't even access some balconies. People store things there, covered in bird droppings. So that must be disposed of. But it happened to me that I came like this to pigeon hunting. Well, I couldn't do that. It was really maybe one of the first weeks I worked. You get used to it over time, but it was when I was getting rid of the mess on the balcony. A pigeon made a nest out of a flower pot somewhere in the corner of the balcony. And there were pigeon chicks. Well, the lady wanted them gotten rid of, right? And I wasn't used to this yet. Luckily, I had a box, so I did something that didn't fix the problem 100%, but it felt better for me. I took them, or not in my hand, but I killed them and threw them into the box. I closed the box, put it in the car, and drove to a nearby forest. There I took them out and left the box. At least I didn't see it, and I was shaking for half a day. Of course, you see it every day as time goes on. Yeah, so today he would swing a shovel? No, probably not. There's a regulation or law that animals must not suffer, whether it's a pigeon, rat, whatever. Bedbugs probably don't suffer, or I hope no one cares, right? But they mustn't suffer. So, for example, it's forbidden to drown kittens. It's in the same law. The kitten just can't suffer. There are so many ways to dispose of an animal humanely, so why? Why would someone drown kittens? It's really a crazy, outdated practice, but it happened and probably still happens somewhere. And of course, there are also ways to eliminate pigeons, but I'd rather not go into detail. It's an ugly thing. Okay, so let's leave birds alone. But you already hinted at something else. That after dealing with the pigeons, you clean up and disinfect the mess they leave behind, right? You clean and disinfect like other messes, right? That's probably a big part of your job. I'll try to share a few stories that won't be counterproductive for me. Okay, this is actually part of the job that most people refuse to do. Do you have to do it or does it just happen? It's not mandatory here. I don't know about elsewhere, but I have colleagues who are a bit tougher in this regard. They primarily handle it, but I've gotten used to it too. Percentage-wise, it's not as common as dealing with pests. Maybe about 5%. There's also regular cleaning where no one's died. Some hoarders, people who defecate on floors and move out, things no one would do without. Disgusting. Without human remains, it's about 5% of the work. The other cases make up a slightly larger percentage. It's voluntary, not mandatory. There's a bonus, but I won't go into details. You must have lots of stories. Share one that won't get my channel deleted. I'll tell you about my first doubt. I was new, less than 3 months in. It was late summer and the body had been there for 3 months in extreme heat. They found it when maggots reached the neighbors. Maggots are those white worms in meat, like when chicken spoils in the fridge or kitchen. It looks similar. Are they fly larvae or something else? Yeah. So that's how maggots are born. I know it's gross, but imagine this. When I see a fly now, I remember where it came from. I won't eat fruit that a fly's landed on, you know? So when you arrive at a scene, it's like, well, let me describe it generally. There are several possibilities, but typically it starts when someone discovers a person has died or gone missing. The police show up, confirm the death, and then investigators, doctors, or coroners come as needed. They take the body, but if it's been there a few days, it starts to rot like any meat would, so they won't take the body in one piece, you know. They'll take what they can, but the stains and fluids that leak from the body, they won't remove. I know it's an unpleasant topic, but it's my job. It's necessary, someone has to do it. So that others don't have to, I do it. There are a few options, but for us at work, it's best when the person lies down on linoleum or in a bed. When it's not necessary, I don't know where it might spill. If someone dies on linoleum, we cut it out, wrap it up, and say goodbye. If they die on a bed, we pack up the bed and take it away. We remove what we can, you know? But if it leaks into the parquet flooring, that's a real problem. I have a photo, not sure if we'll show it, of a man who died on a couch. He was there so long that it seeped into the parquet. I think it even reached the neighbors below. At that point, it's a job for builders. They have to tear it out and redo everything. Of course, all the parquet had to be removed and disposed of. That's not your job, though. You probably just pulled up the flooring. The material that needs disposal is still our work, but we won't touch the walls. Back to the first man, he had no one, so nobody cared about him. It was a lonely place in the village, a kind of hostel for people with no one to look after them. Well, it spread to the neighbors. When we arrived, I thought it wouldn't be too bad. I went with colleagues who were already Truly experienced folks who've done this for years. I saw the bed, it was a mess. Various fluids and colors all over it. I looked and thought, I'll keep my distance. The grease and liquids, they evaporate into the whole apartment. In such cases, you have to gut the entire place. Everything's contaminated, you know? Exactly. I saw a bucket across the room. Thought, I'll dump it despite the worms. But it wasn't water, it was a 3-month-old chamber pot. Nearly lost my lunch. That was your first case and mine too. After that, I toughened up, got used to it. Recently, we were at a guy's place with parquet floors, and the people from the house were amazed by how we could live there. I didn't even notice it smelled. How many circuses do you put on in a year? I'd say, generally speaking, we do quite a few. Definitely in the high tens. I do about 5, maybe up to 10, more like 5 a year, but you get used to it. Yes, indeed. I also do other things like disposing dead rats and animals. It smells the same, really. Exactly the same smell. Of course, if someone stays there for 3 months, it smells even worse. I've encountered cases where the smell lingers for months after the incident. It's essentially the same odor. Sometimes we clean up crime scenes. I'd rather not use that ugly word, but when someone does something that sends another to eternity, you know, there might be splatter on walls and such. It's complex because we often don't know exactly what happened. You lack context. When it's a personal uninstallation, as we call it, when someone removes themselves, it's noticeable. It could be in a forest or similar. It's happened before. I'll share an example from colleagues, though I haven't seen it myself. It's worth mentioning, but I need to be careful how I phrase it. Let's just say a knife was involved. It was in the attic, seemingly uninhabited, but the structure must have weakened. He fell from the 6th floor to the basement. He was in pretty bad shape. It's possible it had gotten worse. Of course, it needs cleaning up. That's the cell's job. The guy's gone now, so I don't know how he looked. But I know what was left of him. We even had a fresh case once. Perhaps I might word this in a way that could offend someone, but I tend to speak frankly. One should not over-exaggerate it, but rather present it to oneself with a bit of hyperbole. Otherwise, it could drive us mad. Also, I believe in certain stages of afterlife, so one can take away more from such places than just bacteria. Of course. No, so I'm certain you're not ridiculing it. Indeed, I take it as a hyperbole for my own sanity. But circling back to the recent situation, it happened a few years back. I won't specify where, but 1.5 tons of heavy shuttering fell on a worker at a construction site. We can certainly imagine what was left of him. Naturally, the stuff that fell on him has to be removed, but we don't do that. Then what remains left over, it takes away the kroner. Well, but then there's still something left there, right? It has to be taken, I don't know, with an old woman with a vacuum cleaner. Leftovers in a bag. It's taken to the designated places. Where? Where is it supposed to be taken? Wait, it's taken to some rendering plant or whatever, either or an incinerator. It depends on which one, if it's an animal or if it's a human, and that's it. So a person goes to some random incinerator or tries to put it on top of the remains, or no, as it's usually contracted. Definitely already with one like an incinerator where it should be taken. Animals, of course, to the cafeteria. Well, you kind of drag the bait into the sewer. Just or yes, so it was similar in this case. Well, like you take it through the bait to the grass, farewell, you just have to cope. Sometimes it's quite improvisation, right? When it's of course in an apartment or a classic situation where a person dies somewhere on the linoleum on the carpet, that's a clear procedure, as always, or as clear as that. I may not have even mentioned that. First, when we arrive, we must disinfect everything thoroughly, using disinfectant to prevent contamination so we can work safely. We don't want to risk getting hepatitis or similar diseases, you know. It's disinfected again the next day, or as agreed. It doesn't smell as strongly of disinfectant after that. When we return, we do the main work, which is cleaning and overall decontamination of the space. Third time, we come back to disinfect once more. Okay, that's about it. Then someone else can rent it. Usually by the time we're called, the apartment is in such a state that it needs to be renovated. Often there are cases where someone's been there for a week. Bluntly put, we scrub it, and the new tenant might not know someone died there. That's scary. I don't like that idea that someone died in the apartment where I live. It's happened. A friend also bought a flat. Then the neighbor said, "Oh, I hope you don't die there, like that man in the old apartment." My partner met the neighbor on our floor who said, "Oh, you got the apartment from that old lady." Yeah, stuff like that. The doors would close on their own and other weird things. You asked about murders and such? Well, I've experienced something unusual. It was a bizarre situation. We were pest controlling a whole apartment block. There were many units, and in one we were told a person was missing. They didn't know where he was. Cops checked twice but couldn't find him, so we were told to skip that apartment. It was on the third or fourth floor. After 6 weeks, we usually spray every 2 weeks. I went to the riser. I opened it to spray for roaches, and suddenly there was this awful smell. You know, that unmistakable odor. It hit me right away. We went to the building manager and said, "He's definitely in there." We couldn't understand how the police missed it twice. Did they just knock? Anyway, the police came a third time and finally found him. He'd been there the whole 6 weeks at least. Makes you wonder, did someone help him there? Or what happened? I really have no idea. You've got an interesting job. That's right, I stumbled into it by chance, but I really enjoy it. It's a way to serve society, you know? People appreciate it, as I've said. Often folks tell me I'm helping them, and that warms my heart. It's great. We've got a fantastic team and great management at work. Can't complain. Ever had any issues, like someone telling you to back off or not letting you in somewhere? Any unpleasant experiences? I get what you mean, but no one's ever stopped me from looking around. People are smart, they know what I should do, but I don't let them interfere. It's my responsibility if something's not done right. Usually, those who complain most don't pay, especially in hostels. It's funny, those who complain most often pay nothing. They pay hostel rent, sure, but that's it. They gripe the most, but it's partly their fault. Maybe they didn't report issues promptly. It's a classic situation. Yeah, it's probably the most common. To sum up, people shouldn't overlook this when they. People really panic most when unsure about wasps, like nests in the facade. Don't try to handle it alone. It's best to ask us for help early. Don't let ego get in the way, thinking it can't happen to us, we're a good family. That's the most common issue. People think it's dirt or something. I often come, I'd say, easily. Every day I encounter decent, normal families and think they don't have a mess here, they just live like this. I'm really sorry this issue isn't discussed more publicly. People need to know what to do because it's becoming a huge problem, not just here, but across Europe. it'll only get worse. So here's a lesson. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's like dealing with mental health or anything else. It's not shameful. The sooner you address it, the better for you and society. It prevents it from spreading. Thanks for this interesting chat. I think we've all learned a lot. Looking forward to the next video. Bye.